This is a making of video that will take you through the steps I took to make this mixed reality dinosaur scene. I've started with a 2D slide and then I've created a virtual reality slide. I'm using the adaptive mixed reality mode in Vortals, and you can see I've connected these nodes together. My next step is to load all of my 3D models. In this experience, I want the camera to start back at the door, move in towards the dinosaur, stop at the dinosaur, and then move up past it, revealing some new animal behind it. And what I'm going to load in is a manta ray. This is a model I've downloaded off the web. And one of the great things about doing a digital experience is that it doesn't have to be a static model. So you can see this is an animated model of the manta ray. So the next step is to texture these models. And fortunately for me, each one of these models has come with its own texture map. So I'm going to add these now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the default lighting. And you can see that the whole scene goes gray. And that's because the system is also lit by the environment light, the background. And if we look at the background is gray, which makes the rest of this scene gray as well. So we need to turn that background black. So I'm going to load in a single black pixel image just to create a black background. And now that the background's black, the rest of the models are black too. So I'm now going to load in a light. And it's just a single little point light. But I don't want it to be lighting everything, I just want it to create a small little ambient light. So I'm going to change its range to about 250. In fact, that's not enough, I'll make it 150. And so now I'm getting a little bit of ambient light from this, and it's probably still a bit much, I'll make it 100. And so now we have a sense of what the dinosaur will look like and what the museum floor will look like. So now I'm ready to texture it. So I've done an online search, and in my online search, I've come across these particular textures. And there's one or two here that look like they might work. And one of them is going to be this physically based rendering material. So I'm going to choose this material pack, and fortunately I can download it for free. So that's a great little resource. So here is my texture applied, and it doesn't look too bad, but it's actually a little bit bigger than I was expecting. So I need to actually go into Photoshop and create this texture myself. So this is the original texture. And my process here will be to increase the canvas size, increase it to 200%. And now I can clone the original layer, merge it down, clone it again. And if I do this enough time, I get to this. And this is about the texture size that I want. But I don't want this image to be too big. And so I do make sure that if I have scaled it up to the point where it's beyond 4096, that I've scaled it down. So this you can see is exactly 4096 by 4096. And that's the size of the texture that I'm looking for. So I'm going to save this out and apply it. And so now we have our textures of the floor set, and I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is add a spotlight. And I want to create some dynamic lighting on my dinosaur. And I don't want this just to be white light, so I'm going to change it to a bit of orange. And I definitely don't want the background lit either, so I'm going to reduce the range. So I'm pretty happy with my lighting now, but also what I want to have is a little bit of a plaque. But since I don't feel like modeling it, what I've done is I've gone to Sketchfab. I've done a bit of a search, and eventually I found a model that I can download. So here is the model in Blender, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this part of the mesh, and I'm simply going to delete it. I'm going to select this part of the mesh, and I'm going to move it into the center. Okay, now with that modified, I can export this and I load the modified version back up in Vortals. And it's a bit dark, so I'm going to add another light onto it so that it's lit. Now this is a bit bright, but for the sake of the next little bit, I'm going to keep the light at this intensity. Because what I want to do is I now want to apply a texture to my plaque. So I'm going to add the texture to this model that I've downloaded. And immediately you can see there's a problem. So this is something that you'll find every single time you download a 3D model. There may be weird bits that you have to work out what's actually going on. So let's go back into Blender and have a look at why this has done what it's done in Vortals. So here is our 3D model in Blender. And in this 3D model, if I actually select it and I move to the materials properties, you'll see that there are actually two materials on this object. And then if you look even more carefully, you'll realize that there are actually two different objects that I've selected. There's the name plaque, and then there's the actual holder itself. And so when we exported this model, we actually exported a model with three different materials. And Vortals does not give you access to those. So what we have to do is we have to decide what this material be. So the first thing we'll do is I'm going to remove the bronze material. And let's have a look at what that looks like. So right now, this is looking fine. I'm quite happy with that, despite the fact that I've removed the material. And I'm not going to export this object. I'm going to simply select our single plaque holder. I'm going to choose Export, and I'm going to choose Export Selected Object, and I'm going to rename the export as Plaque Holder. So now our plaque has applied its texture correctly. Now that I have that sorted, I have my little name tag, I have my dinosaur lit, I'm ready to animate my camera.